And now a word from our sponsors. Are you afraid your disabled or elderly loved one is going to take a nasty spill? Would you feel a whole lot better if there was a healthy dose of Big Brother to the independent? Then you need keep them safe. Unlike those necklaces that rely on the distressed individuals to press the button, keep them safe has a camera inside the wearable so you can keep an eye on them. And the wearable monitors velocity of the individual. So if they fall, an ambulance will automatically dispatch. Remember, no running. Keep them safe because too much independence can be a bad thing. On this episode, we'll be talking, listening, captioning, reading, however way you communicate about disability models. No, I'm not talking about disabled men who pose for GQ or disabled women who do the cat role. The models we'll be talking about are less sexy, more nerdy, and therefore readable alley. This is Reid Davenport. This is Basic Able. For some of you, the thought of hearing the difference between the social and the medical model of disability makes you nauseous because you've heard it in so many letters, read it in so many books, and constantly think about it as it relates to your life. Trust me, we're not trying to emulate Disability Studies 101 so you can put your hand down. For other people, disability models sound dry and geeky, which is offensive. I'm not dry. The medical model says that disability is born out of one's medical diagnosis, whereas the social model says that disability is caused by society's reaction to one's medical diagnosis. Example, I know this man with cerebral palsy. He's funny, he's charming, he's good looking, he's a podcast host. But I digress. According to the medical model, his disability is cerebral palsy. It's on me, on him, to adapt and to overcome. According to the social model, he's disabled because of inaccessibility, employment discrimination, people's awkwardness towards him, etc., etc. After thinking for years about these two models, there's something that still disturbs me greatly. The question surrounding soup. For me, soup is out of the fucking question. That journey from bowl to mouth with a steady hand might as well be 50 miles of rocky terrain during an earthquake. And of course, soup is hot. So unless I want third-degree burns on my face, I stay away from soup. Yes, I'm soup phobic. Now, according to the medical model and my gut, which we've already established is absent of any soup, I can't eat it because of cerebral palsy. According to the social model, I can't eat soup because I don't have the assistive technology to safely transport the soup to my lips. I have to admit, though, it's really weird talking about my lips with you. Anyway, soup, I'm confused. Here to help me figure out the real reason why Grandma's chicken noodle is so fucking ableist is Professor Cathy Kudlick. Cathy Kudlick is a professor and director of the Paul Domler Institute of Disability at San Francisco State University. A new book coming out soon is the Oxford Handbook of Disability History, which I am told is not just about how the city of Oxford deals with disability. Welcome, Cathy.
It's great to be here.
So, soup.
First of all, the question might be, why eat soup in the first place? The other way to think about it is to consider other ways of eating the soup. Should it be in a bowl? Should it be in a straw? Why not be able to eat soup the way you get to eat soup? People are very creative about getting food into their stomachs. There's this wonderful creativity and ingenuity and a real sense of force and power and flexibility and all of these really exciting things that people don't think about when it comes to living the life of a disabled person. And I think Neil Marcus said it really well. He says, disability is an ingenious way to live. I might not have the quote just right, but yeah, it's close.
We'll have our fact checkers check it out.
Yes, that's right, yeah. There's a simulation and exercise that you can do to understand what it's like to be a blind person. And that the usual one is they put a blindfold on you and you walk around and you say, whoa, it's dark, or I can't find it, or where am I? And somebody leads them around, and it's gross. I mean, it's a depressing and not a very useful exercise. It's basically what it's like to put a blindfold on. That's it. It's not really teaching you squat about blindness. If you were going to do a social simulation, you give somebody a white cane, a pair of sunglasses, and you'd say, go somewhere where you don't know anybody. You don't have to pretend you're not seeing. You don't close your eyes, and you just watch how people treat you because you have a stick in your hand, glasses on your face. Do they talk down to you? Do they ignore you? Do they talk to the person you're with? Do they, all of those things. And that will get you at the social ideas, because the average blind person, by the time they've gotten into the world, they've learned how to move around and get around by themselves. They've learned how to go to restaurants. They've learned how to do all the things that people don't think they can do. So you want to focus on the social reactions and the weirdness that comes from when people don't understand.
Is there a new model that is emerging that will kind of replace the social model?
I'm hoping we're going to get beyond models. That's my dream, is that we go beyond the notion of a model. And, again, as I said, it's kind of useful for teaching at the beginning to get people to question their assumptions and move to a different place. I find models too confining, and it's too simple. And I think people are not simple.
Welcome to the first installation of No, Don't Do That. This is the segment of the show when we describe a situation. You, the listeners, will then be presented a question of whether you should A, do something, or B, not do something if you were in that situation. Now, there are no wrong answers, but the only right answer is no, don't do that. A woman is rolling up a steep coca in a manual chair with groceries in her lap. You ask yourself, should I push her up? No, don't do that. I want to talk about a book that was recently released that you edited, Telethons. I know that author Paul Longmore wasn't just a colleague, but a friend. He was one of the most, if not the most, prolific disability scholar. Can you talk about what it was like for you to continue his work?
Wow, yeah, that's I've thought a lot about it, and I'm honored that you asked me that question. I haven't really had a chance to talk about it that much, but it was I mean, there was a piece of me that went on not quite autopilot, but I just needed to get through it. It was a task. I knew it was a great book. I knew it needed to get out there into the world. The other piece was, yeah, Paul was a friend. I've got to tell you the great Paul Longmore story about how I didn't meet him. I said in an email to him, wow, I've never met a professor like this. It's so great. And I've never been able to talk to anybody about my disability, and I would love to talk to you about it. No answer. No answer. 1 year went by, 2 years went by, and I think it was almost 3 years. So I was at a conference, and I was at a session, and there was this guy that was really smart, and he was really funny, and he was very articulate, and all of these things. I thought, oh, that's Paul Longmore. And I thought, I have to go and meet him. So I crawled up a little, I just felt like a little tiny worm. And I went up and I said, I introduced myself, and he says, oh my God, I owe you a letter. And so we went to lunch afterwards. So here we are. And it's Paul, who didn't have use of his hands. And Cathy, who barely has use of her eyes, in a restaurant, nice restaurant in a hotel, right? And the food comes, and I'm supposed to feed him. So I take up my little, spoon. He says, okay. And he was really good about kind of making me comfortable and do that. But I have no depth perception. So I'm just like, and he's like, no, over this way. And we just started laughing. It was so funny. And it was just this wonderful bonding experience. It wasn't just about our ideas and our intellects, but it was really this kind of hilarious moment where our two disabilities kind of worked against each other, but they bonded us. So from that point on, we were sharing ideas, and we were, he would call me up and we'd talk, and I would call him up when I had ideas, and he, we really exchanged work, and I gave him feedback and he gave me feedback, and all along heard about this telethon book through his whole, as he was writing it, and he would share little bits, but he wasn't sharing a lot of it with me at that point. And then, he died suddenly, and it was devastating for all of us. I can't even, I still don't have words for it. It was just like this amazing intellect was no longer with us. He had once said to me in a conversation, if anything ever happens to me, I would like you to be one of the people that really works on finishing my book. And I thought, okay, finish your book already, okay? Because I didn't want to do it. And but then, of course, he died. So I get files and files and files and files and files of this book. And it was intense because it was conceptually, it was mostly done. It was, his basic ideas were there. Some chapters were really polished and really finished, and other ones were completely in disarray. Sometimes the footnotes were in the body of the book, and the body of the book was in the footnotes. But I'd have these really intense moments where I'd be sitting there, and I knew Paul never met a quote he didn't like. And I'm sitting there and I'm having this debate with myself. Should I cut this quote? Should I not? And this is going to sound really weird and metaphysical, but I felt him with me. It was the weirdest, most intense experience where, and I could almost hear him saying, don't take that one out, or, okay, you can take that one out, but put this other one in. And it wasn't always, but it was a few times. There were a few times when I came up with the perfect formulation in that book, and I'm the only one that knows where they are, but I knew they were perfect. And that was just such a satisfying thing. I thought, yes, Paul would have said it exactly that way. And I felt all like proud of myself and everything for channeling this other person. And that's really what it was. It was channeling another person. I think he would have been proud. There were a few times where we had arguments about what I did, especially with the conclusion. but I had to go with what I had, and I had to go with, what other people were telling me. And, I think he would have done some things differently had he lived, but I have to honor what I had to work with, and I couldn't second guess too much.
Well, thank you for doing that. I mean, it's a tremendous book. He wasn't very dense, but at the end of being dense, he would sometimes pack like a punchline to a joke. And this was no different in telethon. Longtime MDA telethon host Jerry Lewis wrote an op-ed, and he mentioned the dependence of children with MD on other people pushing their wheelchairs, to which Paul retorted, "This perception apparently screens out the widespread use of motorized wheelchairs."
Paul was one of the funniest people. And it wasn't just around disability. He was just generally funny. He just would, kind of sit there. He had a lot of moral authority, and he would just say something and it would just cut through all the garbage and be very funny, but very pointed and extremely, observant.
So you're coming out with the book that you co-edited. Can you talk about that?
Sure. It's called the Oxford Handbook of Disability History, and there's 3 of us that edited the book together. Michael Rembus at Buffalo, and Kim Nielsen at Toledo. And the 3 of us are all disability historians, and we tried to get a snapshot of more international and kind of cutting edge histories that we could find from talking to people that we know in the field. Any book, I think what people don't realize when a book comes out, it's not the newest thing. It's probably the oldest thing in a way, because, people work on a book, just like with a film, you work on it for a long, long time. Like when you look at the stars in the sky, you see these lights out there and it's great, but some certain percentage of them are already burned out in real life, but you don't see it yet. And
it's so uplifting.
No, but it's not a bad thing. It's going to be great. I think it's really, really an important intervention, and there's some great articles in there. I'm very proud of the volume. I'm very proud of what we're bringing to light.
Thank you so much, Cathy. I really appreciate it.
Okay, sure.
These are some sponsors we tried to reach out to, but they weren't sure that our listeners would be interested in their products. Vintage rotary telephones, Hanes socks with individual toes, Me Before You on Blu-ray, Colgate new ultra-thin dental floss, spaghetti. Basic Able is presented by Thuma Lent and made possible through a grant from the Full Foundation. Producer of Basic Able is Latoya Newton, executive producer Dan Lee. Camera is Sarah Krieger, captioning Cheryl Green. Visit thumalens.org to find out more about our disrupting media portrayals of disability and how to get involved. This is Reid Davenport reminding you that sometimes it's better to be a bridge than it is to build one. Thank you for listening, watching, or reading Basic Able. Till next time.